Alright, let's get into it. So as we all know, Puss in Boots 2 is one of the best films to be released in the last few years, and this got me wondering how good was the first one compared to the second one. So, let's find out. The scene starts off with Puss in Asmongold's room and he tries to sneak away, then the guy, I don't know his name, wakes up and they begin to fight. And this movie came out in 2011 and it really has some good choreography, so that's already points in my book. And if you actually look closely, he does his signature move straight away. Hey, I respect it. So it's later that night, or I think it's later that night, and there's some festival happening, and Puss goes into his bar and everyone inside begins to clown on him. But Puss is not going for the disrespect and makes sure everyone knows that he is indeed the Puss in Boots. So the people inside the bar begin to tell him that there are people called Jack and Jill who have some magic beans, and hearing that, Puss wants to go and find them. We cut over to Jack and Jill, and Jack is thinking about quitting all the things that he's done so he can start a family, but Jill isn't really going for any of that. Puss tries to come in and steal the beans, but this other cat comes out of fucking nowhere and is of course after the same thing. Jack and Jill get alerted to two cats outside and they instantly put the guns on them, and the other cat straight up runs away, and I would have done the exact same thing. Two massive people pointing guns at me? Yeah, I'm out of here. See you later. My boy Puss gets shot outside and he begins to chase the cat that was inside. Puss manages to catch up to the other cat and they begin a dance battle, and both of them are showing out right now. It's actually crazy how these cats are better dancers than you and me. The cat then takes off the mask and we finally get introduced to Kitty. Kitty then goes into this room and Puss follows behind her, and then we get introduced to Humpty Dumpty. So it's revealed that Humpty Dumpty's after the same magic beans too, and he hired Kitty to get Puss's attention so they can all work together to get the beans. But we find out that Puss actually has a grudge against Humpty Dumpty. So to sum it up, basically they were really close back then. They were so close that Humpty actually named Puss and they became brothers. But one day Puss actually saved an old lady from a ball and got his signature boots and became the Puss in Boots that we all know and love. But Humpty continued to steal and he ended up stealing the people's money and dragged Puss into it. They tried to escape but it didn't go as planned and Humpty ended up getting stuck on his shell. He asked for help but Puss just left him behind, and I've done the exact same thing. You mean to tell me you tarnished my name, tried to get me to steal, and then you're asking for my help? Hell nah, I am gone. And after that day, Puss lost everything, and it's a shame because it came from someone who he considered a brother. So Humpty's pleading with Puss that he joins, but he eventually does agree, but it's still fuck Humpty. So we fast forward a little bit and Puss and Kitty are trying to steal the beans, and Puss is saying her to use her claws, but what he doesn't know is that Kitty doesn't actually have any claws, so Puss has to steal the beans instead. And after a close encounter and once again guns in the face, they manage to escape. So right now Puss begins to show his riz on Kitty, and that ends up making her reveal her backstory, and it's revealed that she doesn't have any claws because her owners cut them off. Jesus Christ. And the reason why they ended up cutting off her claws is because she was cutting up the curtains and being too rough on the hamster. Now, me personally, I'm against declawing. I think that every single cat should have their claws because everyone has a right to defend themselves, and that goes the same for kittens or any cat. They should definitely have their claws, that's just my opinion anyway. But yeah, let's move on. So they end up arriving at the location and then they bury the beans, and then this creates a massive tree forming all the way to high heaven. And when they eventually get off the tree, they are on these clouds which are solid? I'm kind of confused on how. I thought clouds would just go through them, or I guess this universe just has solid clouds. I don't know, let me know in the comments. So right now everyone's having a good time and messing around with the clouds, but then they see this massive castle, and yep, that's where the golden egg is. They make it inside and they're currently sneaking around right now, and then they encounter multiple golden eggs and finally encounter the golden goose. They eventually decide that instead of taking the eggs, they'll just take the goose instead, which is actually a smart idea because now we can have a goose that basically shits out gold. So they manage to escape, narrowly missing the Great Terror, and we'll come back to it later on, but the Great Terror isn't actually something that's really that bad. So we fast forward once again to later that night, and they are currently celebrating, and I would be doing the exact same thing. But this motherfucker Humpty tries to take a dance with Kitty, but Puss makes it known that Kitty is his girl only, and Puss tells her that he wants to escape with her, but Kitty is obviously hiding something. But out of nowhere, Jack and Jill end up pulling up on them and knocks Puss out, leaving him for dead in the desert. But when Puss wakes up, Humpty, Kitty, Jack, Jill, and the golden goose are gone, vanished like fucking Houdini. So Puss ends up heading over to San Ricardo, and it's revealed that this two-timing, no good loser, absolute bastard Humpty was working with Jack and Jill the entire fucking time. Yeah, fuck this egg. And it's also revealed that this entire time, Humpty was always there. Every location Puss has been to so far, he has been there watching him. Just like how Death was in the second movie. And it's kind of cool how they added this. So the reason why Humpty did all this is because he wanted to get back at Puss for leaving him behind. But I think this is stupid. The reason why they ended up in that situation to begin with was because of his own actions. Humpty was the one who wanted to steal from the people even though Puss was being a good person. Humpty was the one who tried to get away, ended up like that, and then was caught. Puss was completely justified in leaving him behind. He has no one else to blame but himself. Him doing this to Puss makes no sense. He did this to himself. So because of this, Puss then ends up in prison, and then he actually meets this guy called Andy Jack Beanstalk, who is basically the original owner of the beans, and he reveals to Puss that the Great Terror from earlier is actually the mother of the golden goose, and it will stop at nothing to get the goose back. So this basically means that everyone in the town is fucked. But Kitty eventually pulls up and frees Puss out of jail. Yeah, Kitty has been a real one since the very beginning. She's probably like the best character in this movie, no doubt. So both of them end up escaping and taking out these fodder guards on the way, but Kitty stays back and it's all up to Puss. Puss ends up pulling up on Humpty's bitch ass, and Humpty begins to explain that he didn't want to be here in the first place and wanted to leave, and he felt abandoned. But I don't care for any type of sad backstory this guy has, it's still fuck him. So Puss actually ends up convincing Humpty to actually help him out with the Great Terror, and he actually does go along with it. Well, that was easy. The Great Terror does eventually pull up, and Puss is trying to tell the goose where to actually find the baby, and they actually are trying to make it leave, but then out of fucking nowhere, once again, Jack and Jill pull up and try to slime out Humpty. Like, is now really the time for this? There is a 300-foot goose chasing us down, and you think now is the best time to kill me? Like, are you serious? What are these guys' priorities? But Kitty pulls up once again and actually manages to handle them. So like I said, Kitty is the best character in this movie without a doubt. So with that out of the way, everyone is back on the bridge like earlier in the movie, and Humpty actually begins to apologize to Puss and ends up letting go of the rope so that Puss can save the goose and reunite it with his mother. Puss ends up looking over to see if Humpty's alive or not, or if he's like a splattered egg on the road, but he's actually shown that he's actually a golden egg, which means that deep down he was good the entire time. Yeah, I don't buy it. After everything Humpty did in this movie, that egg should be fucking rotten, but whatever, I guess. Puss then says goodbye to his mother, and him and Kitty begin to leave, once again showing off their dance moves. They end up splitting up, and Puss once again becomes the legend that he was, and that's the end of the movie. Alright, and that's another video done. Now, is this movie as good as the second one? Absolutely not. This movie is nowhere near as good as the second one, but is it still very fun and enjoyable? Absolutely. I had so much fun watching this movie, and I haven't seen it in years. So me rewatching this again, I just really enjoyed this movie. A lot of things about this movie is fantastic. Like the characters like Kitty are just great, but the second movie, everything about the second movie just took what was in this movie and just made it like 10 times better. The animation, the characters, Death, like Death is just a perfect villain, and I think Death himself is better than every single villain in this movie. Death is just the perfect villain in my eyes. One of the best villains that DreamWorks has ever come up with. But yeah, this movie is very good, but compared to the second one, it just gets blown out the water. Everything about this one, they just made it 10 times better with the sequel. But overall, a very enjoyable movie. I have not seen this movie in years, and coming back to it again, I really enjoyed it, like I said. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!